In early August 2023, Matt Wrigley enters a house in Leongatha, Australia. He has come to do some painting work in the house. As a master painter, he has certainly seen his fair share of things in his clients' homes. But when he sees the wall he is supposed to work on today, he pauses for a moment. The white surface has been completely covered in marker pen scribbles. The owner of this house in Leongatha, Mrs. Patterson, tells the painter that her children have been letting their creativity run wild on the wall, much to her annoyance. But what Matt Wrigley sees there is a whole different story. It has little to do with harmless doodles. "I am dead," it says. "No, I am really dead. You are dead by my sword. You don't have long to live, exactly 1 hour." At the very bottom of the wall, 3 tombstones have been drawn. One reads, "Grandma Rip." Another, "Me Rip." Matt Wrigley finds this so disturbing that he quickly snaps a photo of the wall with his cell phone. He has no idea that he is taking a picture that will soon be linked to a spectacular murder plot.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened.
On July 16, 2023, Erin Patterson sits in a church pew next to her 2 children. The 3 of them listen to Pastor Ian Wilkinson's Sunday sermon. They know Ian well. He is, in fact, the children's great-uncle by marriage. Erin is separated from her husband, Simon, but they share custody of their children, and it's important to them that family life remains balanced despite the separation. That's why everyone takes some time after the service for a little chat. Erin takes this opportunity to invite the family over for dinner: her ex Simon, his parents Don and Gail's sister Heather, who is married to Pastor Ian. There's a reason for this gathering, as Erin has something she needs to tell them all. It concerns medical issues. Heather and Ian are surprised by the invitation, as they've never been invited to Erin's home before. Erin and Simon Patterson met in 2004 and married shortly thereafter. When Erin received a substantial inheritance from her grandmother in 2006, the couple initially traveled around Australia together and became parents for the first time. For a while, the 2 lived in their own house in Western Australia. When their second child was on the way, Erin and Simon decided to move to Victoria so they could be close to the grandparents. But with the children, the relationship between Erin and Simon began to crumble. They separated briefly several times before finally calling it quits in 2015. They share joint custody of the 2 children and, for the kids' sake, always go on vacation together as a family. To discuss the kids, Erin and Simon naturally remain in contact. Erin herself will have no living relatives left by 2023, apart from her children. This makes Erin's relationship with her ex-husband's family all the more important to her. Simon knows this too. The fact that Erin still wants to have something to do with his family is one thing for him, but the other thing for him is being there himself. On July 28th, the day before the planned lunch, he decides to back out of the whole thing. So he sends Erin a text message. "I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable having lunch with you, Mom, Dad, Heather, and the others tomorrow. But we can certainly talk about your health and what that will mean. If it's okay with you to discuss this over the phone, just let me know." His ex-wife is anything but thrilled about this cancellation. She had invited Simon and his parents, Don and Gail, over for dinner a good 4 weeks ago. Simon had canceled at the last minute then too, so she ended up eating alone with her ex-in-laws. Erin tries to appeal to Simon's better judgment again via text. "This is really disappointing. I've spent many hours this week preparing for tomorrow's lunch, which was really exhausting given my problems, and I spent a small fortune on the beef tenderloin to make Beef Wellington because I wanted it to be a special meal. It's quite possible I won't be able to host another lunch anytime soon. It's important to me that you're all there tomorrow and that I can have the conversations I need to have. I hope you'll reconsider. Your parents and Heather will be there at 12:30 p.m. I hope to see you then. Erin won't see Syme the next day, but Dawn and Gail, as well as Heather and Ian, will. 3 of them for the last time. Simon doesn't let Erin's text message sway him. He sticks to his plans and skips lunch with his family and his ex. Instead, he takes their 2 children to the movies. That way, he's off the hook, and the kids don't have to spend their Saturday at a stuffy family dinner. So it's just Dawn and Gail Patterson, along with Ian and Heather Wilkinson, who show up at Erin's door around 12:30 p.m. on July 29th. Erin serves the meal to her guests on large gray plates. She's made Beef Wellington. The sides are mashed potatoes and green beans. However, the mood at the table quickly shifts. Erin had already told the church that she had something to share with everyone over lunch, so she drops the bomb right away. Before anyone can take a single bite, Erin reveals that she has cancer. She asks her guests to pray with her before the meal. Of course, no one expected such a shocking diagnosis. During the meal, the 5 of them discuss how Erin should best tell her 2 children about the cancer. The 5 of them pray once more, asking that Erin and Simon's 2 children may cope well with the news. On the evening of July 29th, however, Dawn, Gail, Heather, and Ian have entirely different problems to deal with. A few hours after lunch at Erin's, they start feeling sick. Really sick. That same evening, all 4 of them have to be taken to the hospital with suspected severe gastrointestinal infections. Erin doesn't seem to be feeling well either. On July 30th, she cancels another appointment. She tells her children she's feeling unwell and has diarrhea. Nevertheless, she drives her son to a practice session but says she has to stop along the way because of her symptoms. And shortly after 3:30 p.m., a rest stop camera captures her heading to the restrooms. However, she spends only 9 seconds there. Afterward, she heads straight for the candy aisle. When Erin is later asked how such a purchase fits with her alleged symptoms, she replies that the snacks were for her children. Erin also presents herself at the hospital, saying she believes she has caught a gastrointestinal infection. However, the medical staff are already overwhelmed with the 4 other patients suffering from gastrointestinal symptoms. Because her condition is deteriorating rapidly, none of the standard treatments are working. Instead, the vital signs of the 4 patients are becoming increasingly critical. When it turns out that Erin, the hostess of the luncheon, is standing right in front of them, the doctors are on high alert. So the attending physician immediately points out to Erin that, in the case of the Petersons and the Wilkinsons, they can no longer assume it's just an infection. Rather, their symptoms are more consistent with poisoning. That's why the doctor wants to know from Erin what ingredients she used for the meal the previous day. Specifically, whether mushrooms were among them, and where she bought them. Erin claims she bought the mushrooms for the Beef Wellington as usual at Woolworth's. She bought another batch of dried mushrooms at an Asian supermarket in town. Somehow, after these pressing questions, Erin doesn't seem to be doing so badly after all, because after a 5-minute stay at the hospital, she's already on her way out. The attending physician, Dr. Webster, finds this so strange that he promptly calls the police. Because the condition of Gail, Dawn, Heather, and the others is continuing to worsen. All 4 hospitalized patients are beginning to suffer liver failure. The doctor is worried about Erin Patterson because she, after all, could develop severe symptoms just like the other patients. He has tried several times to reach Erin Patterson himself, but without success. So he is now asking the police to check if the woman is okay. A police officer stops by the Pattersons' home in the afternoon. He takes the opportunity to take a sample of the food with him. Erin Patterson is also able to show him the leftovers from dinner in her organic waste bin. She adds that she had just reheated and served her children a portion of the meal, and they are doing just fine. However, she had scraped off the mushroom layer because her children don't like mushrooms. Nevertheless, both Erin and the children are taken to a hospital as a precaution to be thoroughly checked out. After less than 24 hours, however, they are given the green light to be discharged. The other 4 are now in the intensive care unit, fighting for their lives. When asked about the ingredients, Erin refers to a recipe to which she made only a few minor changes. Preparing beef Wellington is quite a challenge, at least if you want it to taste good in the end. It consists of tender beef tenderloin wrapped in a hearty mushroom duxelle and baked in crispy puff pastry. For 3 of the 4 guests, it would be their last meal. On August 4th, Heather Wilkinson and Gail Patterson died of organ failure. A day later, Don Patterson also died in the hospital. He had received a liver transplant in the hope of saving him. Unfortunately, it was in vain. Ian Wilkinson is the sole survivor, currently in a coma. At this point, the homicide division takes over. The symptoms of the 4 patients point to the consumption of the green death cap mushroom. It doesn't bear that name for nothing, as it is responsible for 90% of all deaths related to mushroom consumption. All parts of the mushroom are poisonous, and consuming even a small amount can be fatal. And indeed, laboratory tests on the remaining beef Wellington reveal that this very mushroom was used in the preparation of Erin Patterson's meal. This makes Erin the prime suspect in a murder investigation.
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened. That Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Gail has lost her life, and Don is still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through, because my children love him.
And you must be pretty shaken up by this as well.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
How are you
I
kids?
just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from? Were they picked from the property area?
I just ask you to leave me alone now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope...
It's not just persistent journalists trying to uncover the details of the lunch. The health department is also trying to get in touch with Erin Patterson. Because if she really did just buy the ingredients at the supermarket, there are obviously other products out there, and there could be more cases of food poisoning. So the authorities want to know exactly what Erin bought, when, and where. It's actually a very simple question, but she puts off the health department in a message. She'll try to compile the details of her purchases, but she just hasn't gotten around to it yet. Naturally, this only sows even more suspicion among the authorities. After all, the whole point here should be to prevent further people from getting hurt. But in fact, Erin really does have her hands full, because in August, she suddenly puts her house up for sale. That's why the painter who makes the discovery you heard about in the intro shows up. After 4 coats of primer and 2 more coats of wall paint, there's no trace left of the disturbing scribbles. That same month, the house is sold for 350,000 Australian dollars. But Erin Patterson remains the focus of the police, the press, and all of Australia. The medical staff treating him had actually hardly expected it. But Ian Wilkinson is able to leave the hospital at the end of September 2023 after nearly 2 months of treatment. As a result, his wife Heather is not buried until October 4th. Ian wanted to be there that day. Meanwhile, the police investigation is in full swing and begins to bear fruit 3 months after the fatal lunch. On November 2nd, 2023, Erin Patterson is arrested. The charges? 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Furthermore, Erin is alleged to have attempted to poison her ex-husband Simon on multiple occasions, as early as 2021 and 2022, once with a pasta dish, once with a vegetable wrap, and another time with a chicken curry. After eating all 3 of these meals, Simon became seriously ill, and as investigators and consulted medical experts have now determined in retrospect, his symptoms at the time are consistent with rat poison ingestion. Simon recalls how Erin gave him a Tupperware container of bolognese in November 2021 before a planned camping trip. Simon spent the following night in the hospital. During a second camping trip in May 2022, Simon became seriously ill. Simon was tending the campfire and therefore didn't see what Erin might have mixed into the food. But on the same day, Simon had to go back to the hospital. Although he was discharged after a few hours, things took a serious turn a few days later. He recalls, "I collapsed at home and was placed in an induced coma for 16 days. During that time, I underwent 3 surgeries, primarily on my small intestine, as well as another previously scheduled procedure. My family was asked twice to come to the hospital to say goodbye, because it wasn't expected that I would survive." After this ordeal, Simon had to go to rehab, and then he recovered at home with Erin and the kids. During his recovery, Erin gave him the cold shoulder, as if she were somehow sulking. The vegetable wrap incident, which directly led to another hospital stay, occurred in September 2022. This time, he even experienced seizures and had difficulty speaking. As it turned out later, Erin Patterson is said to have downloaded an article about rat poison around that time. Even back then, Simon says, he confided in a doctor that he believed Erin was trying to poison him, but there was no way to prove it directly. He also says that it never occurred to him that Erin would poison anyone other than him, certainly not his parents or his aunt and uncle. That's why he didn't warn them when they were invited to Erin's for lunch. But even before the trial against Erin begins, the charges regarding Simon's poisonings are removed from the main trial and later dropped entirely. Instead, the focus shifts to the most concrete and best documented allegations, those of the triple murder of Don, Gail, and Heather, and the attempted murder of Ian. Of course, the question is whether Erin really did intentionally use the poisonous mushroom in the meal, or whether it was all just a tragic accident. To gather enough for the mushroom filling, one would have had to actively go looking for them. On top of that, death cap mushrooms are also quite rare. But the poisonous mushroom appears in Erin Patterson's browser history. She searched online to find out where she could find this mushroom in her region. During that time, a post on an Australian nature forum mentioned that the mushroom could be found in 2 locations. Users typically post this information to warn other mushroom hunters. Yet Erin's GPS data shows that she visited both of these locations shortly after the relevant posts were made. She spent a good 20 minutes at each location. However, these mushrooms spoil quickly. As is now suspected, this is precisely why Erin dried the mushrooms using a solar dehydrator she had purchased specifically for this purpose. She disposed of it shortly after eating, presumably to cover her tracks. However, the police were able to recover it from a landfill near her home. It bears Erin's fingerprints and contains residues of the poisonous mushroom. In a Facebook group, she is also said to have shown between March and May how she dried mushrooms and added them to dishes in powder form. Even before the meeting on July 29th, she had repeatedly hinted in text messages that she was undergoing medical tests and examinations. At lunch, she finally claimed to have cancer. You've surely already guessed that the latter was a tasteless lie. In late March 2023, she made appointments on her own initiative to be screened for cervical cancer. The tests came back negative. Nevertheless, she is said to have told her ex-mother-in-law Gail at the end of June that she would have to go back to the clinic to have a biopsy performed. That was 1 month before the fatal lunch. Erin presumably planned the lie about her own illness weeks in advance to ensure that everyone would accept the invitation. It worked, and in the end, 3 of the 4 guests were dead. On April 29, 2025, the murder trial against Erin Patterson finally begins. She maintains her innocence. She claims that the deaths of Gail, Dawn, and Heather from poisoning were a terrible accident, but by no means a premeditated murder. As part of her defense, Erin takes an unusual step. While the prosecution calls several witnesses, the defense limits itself to a single witness, and that is the defendant herself. She apparently believes she can win the court over sufficiently with her testimony. On the stand, Erin describes the influences of her childhood: eating disorders resulting from her mother's controlling nature, low self-esteem, but also the academic environment in which she grew up. Her mother worked as a literary scholar at the university and published successfully. Her father held several high-ranking positions at various companies. Erin's sister, just like her mother, became an academic. Erin, on the other hand, chose a different path. First, she trained to become an accountant, then an air traffic controller. Although she successfully completed this difficult training, she changed jobs again after a short time and worked in animal welfare for a while. The death of her parents hit her hard. Erin also reports that she felt hurt by Gail in the spring of 2023 because she felt she was one of the last to be invited to Gail's 75th birthday party. In chats with online friends, Erin vented her anger about Simon's useless and lazy family. Simon himself testified that the situation between him and Erin had already escalated around 2022. His tax advisor had incorrectly stated on the forms that Simon was single and not living separately. Erin promptly filed a claim with the authorities for child support from Simon. This was despite the fact that she had inherited a substantial fortune, first from her grandmother, then from her mother, and didn't actually lead a particularly expensive lifestyle. The authorities, in turn, advised Simon to stop paying the children's school fees and medical bills. While Erin had always attended family gatherings up until then, she began showing up less and less starting in 2022 and withdrew from family life. Nevertheless, Erin says, she still cared deeply about what others thought of her. She admits to having lied to her in-laws about her alleged cancer diagnosis. She only told them that because, in reality, it was a different surgery she was ashamed of: a gastric bypass surgery for weight loss. The lie, however, had nothing to do with a pretext to lure the family to lunch. Instead, she simply wanted to spend time with the family. In addition to Erin and Simon, Ian is also testifying as the only surviving guest from Erin's dinner party. Ian recalls that he, his wife Heather, as well as Gail and Dawn were served their meals on gray plates. Only Erin ate from an orange plate. Erin, on the other hand, claims she doesn't use gray plates at all, but black ones, plus a few white ones and a red one. Ian and Erin do, however, agree on some points in their accounts. Both Ian and Heather finished their portions completely. Don also finished his meal and then ate about half of his wife Gail's portion. Erin ate only about a third of her own portion. She also says she threw up after dessert. Unlike Erin, Ian, Heather, Gail, and Dawn barely touched the cake Gail had baked for dessert. Erin says, however, that she herself ate 2 large pieces of it, which she later threw up. Erin is presumably trying to explain how it could have happened that everyone else was so severely poisoned while she came out unscathed. Interestingly, Erin also mentions again that she had to stop at the gas station on July 30th because her diarrhea was so severe. Yet the surveillance camera footage clearly shows that she was in the restroom for just 9 seconds. Afterward, she even calmly bought various savory and sweet snacks. However, since Erin, according to their statements, ate from the only colorful plate, it is much more plausible to trial observers that Erin's Beef Wellington simply wasn't poisoned at all. And that, if it had been up to Erin, Simon would have been sitting at the table as well, eating the poisoned Beef Wellington. In closing arguments, the prosecution reiterates that Erin Patterson had planned everything well before July 29th. She lied about being sick to ensure that all family members would accept her invitation. After poisoning Gail, Dawn, Heather, and Ian, she feigned milder symptoms herself and also attempted to cover up the crime. The jury subsequently reached a unanimous verdict. Erin Patterson was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. For each murder conviction, she received a life sentence plus an additional 25 years. Theoretically, Erin Patterson could apply for parole in 2056. Erin Patterson intends to appeal her conviction. In November 2025, a motion to appeal the convictions was granted. Thus, the first step toward a possible appeal process has been taken. Currently, however, Erin Patterson is known in Australia primarily as the Mushroom Killer and the central figure in one of the most talked about criminal cases of recent years. Incidentally, the meaning behind the scribbles on the wall found in Erin's house was never revealed. Her children were already 9 and 14 at the time of the crime, an age when one typically no longer draws on walls, at least not in that manner. Consequently, it stands to reason that the scribbles were older and simply seem disturbing in hindsight, knowing what happened in that house on July 29, 2023. What became of Erin and Simon's children after the conviction is unknown for privacy reasons. All that is known is that the 2 changed schools after the incident and have settled in well there. Ian Wilkinson, a survivor of the deadly lunch, continues to mourn his wife. Without her, he says, he feels only half alive. He still has health problems. In particular, his liver values have never recovered. Nevertheless, he has publicly forgiven Erin for what she did. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this case. Maybe you've been following it from the start. I'm also curious to know what you think the motive was. Did she just want revenge? Revenge for the fact that she had no relatives left, but Simon did? I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it. Other than that, there isn't much more to say. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever time you're watching this, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao everyone.